Hi, everyone. This week, our lesson will be on two parts. First, we're going to talk about the topic to working thesis to the thesis, which is what we'll be talking about in this video. And the next video will cover research. Some of the examples in this video that I'm using are for 101. So if you're watching this for 096, there will be some differences. And I'll explain those when I get there. Before we get started, it's helpful to be on the same page. Your topic is the overall umbrella topic you're interested in, the social issue. The working thesis is where you start narrowing it down. It's the specific topic of your social issue. So if I was going to talk about racism, I would think about different ways racism manifests, and then I would choose one or two of those. And we'll talk about how to narrow it down in the next slide. And this is also where it sets the position that you're taking, and potentially some broad details of support being used to defend your position. Once that's done, you're ready to start researching. The working thesis is meant to change, and it's meant just to help guide you to the research process. And then you go into the thesis statement, which is also considered a revised or final thesis. That's the one you'll make in your paper, and you do that after research. So the steps go topic, working thesis, research, revised thesis, then you write your paper. The topic here, there's some overall steps. This is the overall, like I said, large umbrella topic you're interested in, and you decide where your passions are and you narrow it down. The more precise your topic is, the easier research will be. If I was just to search for racism, for example, I'm going to find a ton of research and resources. And in that situation, it's going to be really hard to figure out what to use and what not to use, because there's so much out there. If I just do a search for racism, for example, in the library, I'm going to get thousands upon thousands, like hundreds of thousands of results, if not more. No one has time to read all those sources. So this is where you start thinking and how to narrow it down. The example in this page, the example I'm using in this slide and the next one are for a project I'm working on where I'm talking about some social issues in popular culture, which is a lot of where my research area is. So with your examples, you're going to want to think more about social issues and how they impact the local community, but the same basic function or basic technique can be used. Ask yourself some questions. What is already out there? What is being talked about a lot? What is being overlooked in the conversation? What is missing? And where are my passions the strongest? I know the question on the side says pop culture, you can ignore that. So here's an example of narrowing down a topic from the project I'm working on. I started with the overall social issue of representation, or how people are reflected and see themselves in popular media. And I wanted to focus on television. So I was thinking about racial, gender, sexuality, different family units, and disability, and how they're portrayed on television. And then I made a column for television, different types of television. You can see the list here, and I narrowed it down a little bit more to superhero shows on the network, on network TV, because it has a wider audience. And then I narrowed that to the CW Arrowverse, which are those network superhero shows. For your example, you might want to think about social issue, then you want to think about local community once you choose your issue. And then you want to start narrowing it down. So for representation, like I said, there were quite a few different ways of looking at representation, and I focused it to one. And then you make the connection between them. For my social issue, I didn't remove that speech, so we'll ignore that. Then you're ready to write your working thesis. The working thesis, like I said, is not the thesis that will be in your final version of the paper. It's meant to evolve through the course of writing the paper, and it's meant to be changed. It's just basically meant to guide you as you start researching and thinking about pre-writing, things like that. It guides the research process. Once you have your position, which we talked about last time, it's easier to start finding sources. And then it states the specific topic of your argument as the focus, which is what you want. And then it sets your tone or position and gives you some early broad ideas of support. Let's see an example. So if I'm doing this on the project I showed you earlier, I would just have the CW Arrowverse shows need to include disabled characters because representation is important. My checklist for this, I knew I was looking at pop culture, so that was there. It's your social issue and the connection and why it's important. For you, you might want to think your social issue, local focus, the connection between the two, and a bit of your position or why you're taking the position. And then you do research, which I'll cover in the next video in more depth. But here you want to start thinking about keywords and search terms. What are some subtopics? What do my readers need to know? What do I not yet know? And see what it turns up and what subtopics or categories sources seem to find into, and they will form your revised thesis. So for my, so let's pretend I've done research and I found benefits of representation. Types of representation already in the Arrowverse shows. What is the Arrowverse? Disabled DC characters, network and viewership impact of diversity, and how disability representation has been done badly. So those are some things I might search for. So let's pretend like I've done my research, and most of the sources I've found are on the benefits of representation, the success of media with representation, and DC characters who are disabled in the source comics. Your revised thesis is what actually gets plugged into the paper after you've done your research. It's the argument you'll be making in your finished paper, in the order in which you'll be making it. Think of it as a roadmap to your final argument, phrased as a statement, not a question, because you want to appear very firm and convicted in what you're saying. And it also needs to be able to be argued against. Even if you think the opposing side is completely wrong, it still should be argued against. And then you figure out the categories your sources fell into. You decide the order in which you'll be using those categories and connect them to your social issue and pop culture. Or for me, it was pop culture. For you, it's social issue and local element. And then you're ready. My revised thesis for this project is what will show up in my paper. Studies into the benefits of representation, the success of media with positive representation, and the variety of disabled characters from DC source material comics. So those are my 3 categories or subtopics. Proves that the time is right for the CW Arrowverse to provide a medium for positive representation of characters with disabilities. And that's all that we'll talk about today. The slide, I will load this PowerPoint for you and you can look at how it looks in an introduction, but we'll focus more on the introduction and everything next week. Stop sharing. And let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing your working thesis and what you're working on.